What's on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering. I hope everyone had an absolutely wonderful day. Now, we are waiting patiently to see the ratings of this year's Super Bowl, and I will not be surprised even the slightest if it's up. Why wouldn't it be up? The Super Bowl viewership simply just goes up. It's like stocks. It goes up and up and up. Every year, there's more and more people who get the game. The game is focusing on serving foreign markets. I mean, the freaking halftime show was in Spanish, if that tells you anything, right? The NFL knows that it's basically saturated America. This is exactly what happened with Disney. Disney realized, hey, this is as big as we're going to get for all these losers in America that propped up our company forever. So now we're going to sell them out, and we're going to try to get into the Chinese market or this market, that market. The exact same thing the NFL, exact same playbook the NFL is following, except we have some early ratings. Now, Nielsen ratings will be out later today. These are Samba TV ratings, which are quite reliable, and it doesn't look great. In fact, it indicates a massive drop in viewers for the halftime show, which literally never happens. I mean, obviously, the Super Bowl, I'm not going to cope. I think that, saying the TPUSA halftime show mogged them is a little sensationalist. A lot of people watched the Super Bowl pretending they didn't would be insane. But here's Samba TV. They're usually the first people to release ratings. The Super Bowl delivered another massive night of television, and the data tells an interesting story. Our latest viewership insights reveal 48.6 million U.S. households turned into the Super Bowl, representing a 13% decrease from last year. If that holds true after Nielsen comes out, there's going to be alarm bells going off. Now you might be saying, well, how did 140 million, whatever the NFL said, they often bake those numbers and they say, well, it's a household, so there's more than one person in that household watching the game, so we're going to pump our numbers up. This is households, right? But the trend, 13% decrease, wild. Then 26.5 million U.S. households watched Bad Bunny's halftime performance, down 40% from Kendrick Lamar's 2025 show. While viewership declined year over year, the Super Bowl remains one of TV's most powerful cultural moments, delivering tens of millions of engaged viewers in an increasingly fragmented media landscape. Now, I'll probably have another video later today when we get the Nielsen ratings, because then we'll have to look at, again, the total numbers. Both people seem to cook them up differently for PR reasons. It's like when the Daily Wire set up, 100 million people watched What is a Woman when it was on X, but they were just saying impressions, not views. For brands, marketers understanding these viewing patterns is essential for maximizing campaign impact and connecting with audiences when they're most engaged. If you want to dive deeper, it's got more information. Now, here is this post, right? These are the cooked ratings, the ones that say, well, if a house watched it, then more people watched it, right? So you see basically Super Bowl 2016, 111 million, 111, then 103, then 98, then 101, then 95, 99, and then they show over 130 million. This is what the mainstream media is pulling. We'll see when Nielsen comes out later today. I'm confused by these numbers, not saying they're wrong, but why is CBS reporting 135 million viewers? Well, thankfully, Ryan Kinnell, who's very smart about these ratings, breaks this down. He wrote, the official numbers won't come out till tomorrow probably, but if the traditional viewership numbers closely mirror the Samba report, it indicates a massive drop in viewers for the halftime show, which had never happened. We're still talking huge numbers because it's the Super Bowl, but this would be a comparative disaster for the NFL and advertisers based on their expectations, and a total rejection by the viewing audience for the Bad Bunny performance. Now, Jason Whitlock chimes in and says, well, is Samba TV a reliable source? And I think that that's a fair question. Ryan Kinnell also, with very smart take here, he knows these ratings, he covers these ratings, wrote, yes, but their data collection is different than Nielsen. They collect data from specific smart TVs And they don't do the average over 15-minute segments like Nielsen. So you cannot directly compare it to the normal viewership. For example, the 48 million households they're talking about is only helpful in comparison to last year's Samba data, which is what I said. Like, it's the trend, right? A 13% decrease. You can't say, look, 127 million people watched last year's Nielsen. That's the Nielsen numbers, but only 48 tuned in this year, Samba numbers. But it usually tracks fairly close. If the 13 and 39% drop holds, it would mean around 111 million for the game and around 80 million for the halftime show. We'll find out tomorrow. And Jason Willek, right? I think households represents 2.4 viewers per household. I believe they're saying 116 to 117 million viewers, down from 133 last year. Now, if that's true, I mean, who can argue, right? Betty Johnson wrote, panic preliminary ratings show viewership for Bad Bunny halftime tanked 39% from last year. Only 26.5 million households, quote, watched. 48.6 million tuned into the game, meaning nearly half of Americans turned off the halftime show, a total cultural victory. Now, again, I don't know how they know. Like, if I'm in my house, right, and I'm not watching the halftime show, am I taking the time to change the channel? I don't think many people do that, right? Do they turn the TV off? These are questions I have about the data. Like, I don't know how they know that people tuned out. Like, people, would you put on an episode of The Simpsons for 15 minutes at halftime? Like, I never watched the halftime show in football, but I never changed a channel. So I don't know if this is more people, saying, hey, I'm going to turn this off for 15 minutes, or, I don't know how they actually calculate that. And again, TMZ put out a poll that they ended up, I believe, deleting. You had who had a better halftime show with, Kid Rock absolutely destroying it. Now, I mean, you had just degenerate stuff. We don't know. They took an L domestically, but that means the global uplift was huge, which is the point. It seems like the NFL got what they were going for. So if Samba only represents American viewership, then it's true. So how does this translate? Well, think what happened to Disney. They wanted all these foreigners to tune in for viewership, right? And it worked for a while. Disney was enjoying the best of both worlds. Then they started changing their movies to court countries like China, right? And slowly Americans tuned out. They destroyed the Star Wars series to try and make it more internationally palatable, and they destroyed the series. We have already seen articles here. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell faces calls to be fired. Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, is facing calls to be fired from MAGA and right-wing voices online who say he's ruined the NFL following the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl took place Sunday and featured a performance from loser Bad Bunny at the halftime show. Bad Bunny, whose real name don't really care. The milestone follows months of mounting backlash against this dork. Again, I don't care about Bad Bunny. To be honest, I can't even think of a halftime show that I gave a crap about. I am not the target audience for Super Bowl halftime shows. Also, who is the person that tunes in just for the halftime show? Who is that? Is it the wives? I'm curious about that. Like, who turns on the TV at the end of the second quarter just to watch the halftime show and then turns it off? Who is that? Apparently that person exists because they do these halftime shows completely like independent of, what football fans actually want. You see, Roger Goodell should lose his job, fire Roger Goodell. I don't know. I don't care. The NFL hates America. Roger Goodell should be fired. I've seen it happen before. This is exactly what Disney did. If you've been following my channel, these markets say, well, Americans have made us as the richest, companies in America, but we want more numbers. We want bigger numbers. And so they abandoned the American markets that made them popular. And well, then the Americans abandon them. And that's exactly what's happening. Now, does that mean that they won't have bigger and bigger numbers? Sure. Like, again, if the Super Bowl gets really big in Mexico, good for them. But let's see what those Mexican advertisers pay for. Do you think AI companies are spending $14 million to run an ad in Mexico? I don't think so. Are they? I mean, no disrespect to Mexico, but imagine if you paid for these commercials. And then you have like Zach Bryn having a meltdown. Oh, I don't care what side you're on. A bunch of adults throwing a super temper tantrum in their own halftime show is embarrassing and the most cringe stuff of the planet. This guy's a loser. This guy complaining about having meltdowns is wild too. Like, okay, this is one thing that even people on the right, like the dissident right, is saying, well, it didn't beat the Super Bowl, so it wasn't a success. It didn't beat. It's never going to beat the Super Bowl's numbers. But shouldn't we be happy that there's actually like an alternative? That there's actually something to watch that isn't degenerate pushing, LGBTQ agendas on our kids at halftime show? Shouldn't we be happy that there's a halftime show that put Christ forward? I mean, isn't that a good thing? I don't understand the cope. It makes no sense. Even Jimmy Kimmel admitted, look at Jimmy Kimmel called out low IQ leftists for suddenly being Bad Bunny fans. Even Jimmy Kimmel admits it.
This week, almost every liberal I know suddenly really into Bad Bunny. I mean, people I've never heard say the words bad or bunny in their lives. Like, I can't wait for Bad Bunny. Oh.
Kimmel admits it. Kimmel admits that the hype around Bad Bunny was just Trump derangement syndrome. Nobody cares. Everyone's going to tune into other alternatives. And by the way, I think not only should Turning Point do it again next year, but I would greatly look forward to other people doing it. Like, I would love, if there are other streamers that would be interested in it, I think it would be great if content creators got together and put together a halftime show and premiered it during halftime that people could tune into. In fact, I'm going to do that next year. Give people something else to watch during halftime and people will tune in. Everybody's sitting around watching the game anyway. Why not put together a special video, hype it up, and release it during the Super Bowl halftime? Actually, I'm going to do that next year. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it. If you haven't yet, subscribe or follow down below. We'll talk to you again real soon.